So call the meeting to order, 5:34 p.m. Approval of the agenda. So I sent an email out like an hour ago because both Jasmine and Daniel sent me something 5-6 days ago, and it was about on my email list, and I went through it today and I said, oh, sorry. So I put those things on there. Hopefully those things are included. Jasmine and Daniel, do you see that I included? Okay. I also updated the GPC administrative reports based on who I think is going to be able to be here tonight. One person canceled, our new marketing person, because she had a meeting with her professor that wanted to schedule tonight. So in the future, she should be able to come because her schedule will likely be more regular. Anyway, any other things about the agenda? Okay.
Oh, can we take minutes off the agenda because we don't have any? The approval of the minutes part.
The approval of the minutes. So I'm assuming so based on Jasmine's comment, we don't have any minutes.
Second the motion.
Oh, you second the motion, okay. Anyone against that motion? All right, so we will table the approval of the minutes. Today is the 25th, all day long. Good. All right, so let's move on to old business. So Jim Collins, your first budget update in Skype. I don't know how much you want to talk about those things.
Well, we had a pretty good meeting. A lot of people had good ideas on where we can try to save money on the budget. I did a few back of the envelope calculations. We're getting close. If we do everything that people suggested, we're still about $10,000 or $15,000 short of having enough money to do the things we planned.
So how much money were we short originally?
80-some thousand ballpark, 75.
Depends on how you count.
Pardon me?
Depends on how you count.
So 85?
85-ish.
85-ish,
Go ahead, Jim.
And that's based on our budget approved on 6/1 of this year. I talked with Estella and Cindy in the business office. We've got a fairly decent plan for setting up new accounts so we can do a one-to-one mapping with modification of our budget, so we can do a one-to-one mapping of line items in the budget to specific accounts. Question for the EB, since that's a business office thing, does the council need to approve what the business office sets up as far as account names and so forth, or do we just let the business office do that?
Does anyone have any opinions about that particular question?
It really depends on how easy it is to reallocate, because the council should be able to change the budget if it wants to. And if setting up the sub-accounts is going to prevent that from being possible, then that's probably something the council needs to be aware of before we give a green light to the business office.
Chris, what do you think about this?
It doesn't prevent
Okay.
anything.
Okay.
The sub-accounts are really just for us to know at the end of the year to say this is exactly how much was expensed for that specific item.
Okay.
But things can be moved around. So it's not like student services fee where it has to be expensed for that specific line item.
Okay. Well, in that case, it sounds fine. Just probably give them whatever he passes our budget and tell them to make sub-accounts as they see fit.
I mean, it's a big deal that our budget's going to now match, so that's a good thing.
The second question that Cindy asked was, do we want so I guess the way it works now is the money sits in the general fund, and the question is, do we actually want to move funds into the sub-accounts, like move all the event funds that are allocated into the event sub-account, have everything that is for events dispersed from the events sub-account, and not move any more money around to sub-accounts for the rest of the year? Do we want to just allocate into the sub-accounts based on the past budget, on the budget that we finally passed, and then money doesn't move anymore? Or do we want to leave the money in the general account, which is the way it works now? The money's left in the general account. Requests for disbursements get made from the sub-accounts, and then money's moved from the general account into the sub-account to cover the money, to cover the disbursement.
Do they have any opinions on which is better to keep track of something? Because I think to me the bigger questions, the solution is which is the easier one to keep track of. easier being, and we're all more closely aligned with the
Well, Cindy was in favor.
reconciliation of the
yeah.
budget.
Cindy was in favor of just, at the, at the beginning of the process, move all the money into the sub-accounts, and we don't move money. We just deduct from the sub-accounts as things are spent from the sub-accounts. But she said that, Estella might have other opinions. I haven't back from Estella yet, so I'm trying to get
The
that.
sub-account
Wait a
situation
minute.
sounds,
Jasmine, Daniel, and then Chris.
putting things into sub-accounts at the start sounds like it would be easier to keep track of how much money is being spent. Because I know in the past, like, if you just try to ask, like, how much money have I spent from this, they're like, well, I can't comb through all of the, like, reports and figure this out for you. But if it's just how much money is left in the sub-account, that's a much easier question to answer for them, I'm guessing. Probably, double check with Estella, make sure you hear from her, but my intuition is that it should be better to move the money in the first place, and then reallocate as necessary, not start everything out in the general account.
Cool. Daniel, and then Chris.
Basic agreement, besides the fact that having them have to do it every time we spend money is just excess for the
Yeah.
business office. which
So the
we don't-
basic agreement is this, move
Yeah,
the sub-accounts to
move
start.
sub-accounts, and that'll be, I think it's just more efficient to do it that way.
Okay. Chris, did you have any, I just
No,
put you on
I
the
mean-
spot in case you had some
Yeah,
knowledge
no,
we don't.
whatever y'all feeling.
Okay, so maybe that's the way, unless Stella says something radically different. Okay. If the floor's still yours, sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's it for a budget. I mean, we're still, is Kevin gonna make it to the next meeting, do you know, Chris?
That's
Yes.
what I told you.
Okay, so hopefully we can hear from Kevin on where we can maybe cut the events budget and, that would be helpful.
But if we don't cut the events budget substantially, then there's gonna be.
Well, the bottom line is, once we pay personnel and stipends, and you look at what's left for travel, events, and operations, there's not enough to cover travel, events, and operations by about, multiple tens of thousands. So, events seems like the thing to cut. Maybe cut back travel a little bit. Jude had suggested cutting back travel from 10,000 to, what was it, Jude? Yeah.
I don't think
you-
Jude suggested cutting travel.
Oh, it was one of, no, the conversation I had with you, it was one of the general council members thought cut
Oh.
back a couple thousand.
Yeah, so, but again,
Amazing.
I'll just keep reiterating my concern, which is that we don't have any record of what we actually have spent on operations in years past. We always had a big rollover and we spent a lot of money, and it's only been the last couple of years, my understanding is that the object codes have been assigned to the different transactions to keep track of, are they events or are they operations or whatever. And 2 years ago, I was looking at those figures with Cindy, and there's things in coded as events which are clearly, like office supplies and things. And so we can't really rely on the coding on the past record, the object coding. Object coding is they assign a classification to each transaction as to what it is, and those are standard university object codes. And apparently those weren't really applied very uniformly. They were sort of, so that's not really reliable as far as getting a number of what did we spend on operations in the past.
I can't, but basically, just to clarify for a minute, it's mostly been SS5, right, that we lost, is that the money that, or what part from?
So I didn't understand the question.
I'm sorry, so mostly the money that was lost, was that related to SS5 funding loss, or?
No, we had, our big budget problems now are from spending like $250,000 or $200,000 last year.
We did not only spend $200,000 last year, we spent a lot more than that.
Yeah, well, I haven't actually added it up, but we had a really big rollover last year, and council, apparently there was a belief that we were gonna lose that money at the end of the year. We didn't spend it, that wasn't accurate. We spent lots and lots of money and spent more than we should have, and now we're in pretty bad shape.
I
Okay,
will say
so-
what we did lose, we were told we had $200,000 permanent funding, $200,000 of permanent funding each year. It turns out it was not actually going to be $200,000 each year, and that wasn't really made clear, and so this year it's $178,000 instead. So in that sense, that's a non-SSF cut that we received.
Cool, so anything else, Jim, on the budget report?
That's a budget on the Skype,
Okay, so that part,
yeah.
so A1, Skype.
So, we've been talking for a while about spending like roughly $600 or $700 on, no, actually, I think it was more closer to 900 on, under 1,000, over 500 on equipment, so we can have a robust Skype, computer, microphones, audio mixer, and everything for meetings. You know, it would sure be nice to have it, but we're sure short on money. I mean, what do people think about that? Should we just
Scrap to next year.
should we just throw it off the table for now?
So
and-
Jasmine, informal proposals to scrap until next year. Maria, Daniel, Jude, any thoughts?
Well, I don't know how the live stream's working, because I've never been forced to just do it only, but we spent $40 on that. I say we keep doing it that way, and then if we get a better rollover next year, bigger budget, then it's time to.
I will say, if you haven't listened to any of the live streams since we got the mic, the sound quality is so much better.
Okay.
One thing I would propose, if we're gonna go with the live stream as our ultimate solution, we should probably, and this is something for Wade Ren, we should be putting that somewhere that,
It is, I think, actually.
I don't know where it is, and I'm just
Mhm.
that would be nice.
Okay.
Did I forget to send you the link?
No, you did. I don't think I put it up.
Okay,
Okay.
well,
and when I say put it somewhere, what I mean is, right now it's sitting in a YouTube account somewhere on the internet, but we should have a
We should make
permanent
it
archived copy of it in some designated place, so that we have these, just because who knows what's gonna happen.
to YouTube.
And place on the website for them.
Yeah.
You can just access directly would be great too.
Cool.
Yeah, I don't know how hard it is to embed, but at the very least, links are fine.
No, I don't wanna. I mean, there's a video content type. I guess I could use, but I don't think it's necessary to look at every single video.
Okay. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, never mind, just links,
Because I mean,
links is
the
fine.
link goes to the YouTube
Yeah,
channel.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but again, just to clarify, what I'm talking about is actually archiving, so that, 2 years from now, when Jasmine's graduated, we've gone on to bigger and better things, and no one can remember the password for the YouTube account, and no one remembers the link, and, we should have a place where we're putting all this.
I am happy to report, if you type GPSC meetings into YouTube, this channel comes up.
So that's good.
Well, for now, it's YouTube.
Okay.
Probably someone from outside should be able to know that. We can't put directions on the website, please go here. and-
No, that's what the link is gonna be. You click the link and it takes you to the
We're at
video
the
you wanted to
website.
watch.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, but just to kind of beat a dead horse, really linking to something that's stored on the internet, probably not the best plan, just because, we've had email accounts deleted
Okay.
over the summer, who knows?
So this is a short-term solution,
Yeah.
long-term, okay.
But even if we're doing this short-term solution, we should still keep copies somewhere, starting now.
Okay.
Is what I would propose.
But Jim, it's on the cloud.
If Google destroys everything, then I don't want to live anyway.
All right, so anything else about Skype? Okay. Next item on the agenda is repository, so that's Jim and Ray Ren. We've kept this on the agenda a couple times.
So I finally got access to the computers. However, so talking to one of the sausage guys, they need to move or use UA Box instead of Gmail for certain items, just to keep it compliant and whatnot. However, the person I dealt with seemed a little reluctant with certain requests that I had with that, so I'm gonna talk to Chris and Megan about getting that departmental UA box going. So once we have that set up, I think what we'll do is so that's one thing, and then with regards to repository, is to start with some sort of folder structure or file structure on their shared directory, you can have everyone, staff and EB go through their specific folders and only move what is important onto these new file structure. Sausage has mentioned that they're going through each department and looking through files. Just as a reminder to everyone, the shared network drive is for GPSE related items only. They ask that you do not store any personal items or personal files on those shared drives because they take up network space on their end. They don't want to have to keep expanding their server space on that. Going back to UA Box real quick is I think there should be like a Windows client like Dropbox or UA Box. I need to confirm that. Hopefully we can sort of do some sort of rsync between the network drive and UA Box to share certain items on the website, like the minutes.
So do you have a timeline for some of these things you still get in touch with UA?
Yeah, I just need to have the box and get that squared away, but besides that, I think next week we should be able to come in and get that file structure set up.
Okay, so I'll just kind of keep this on the agenda for next time, and you and or Jim can give an update whatever the process is at that point. If it's just like I talked to him and we'd like to set up to do this, then we can say that.
Yeah, sure.
Cool. Next item on the agenda is the Supreme Court. Daniel?
Right. So this is only on here because we've had sort of informal discussions about the Supreme Court. The last couple of times, I went through the ASU's Constitution, read all their stuff about how their stuff works. And so first off, their whole governing structure is radically different from ours. But what they have a graduate Supreme Court, they at least elect, newly elected people select a Supreme Court every year, and everything, any sort of problems will eventually rise to that level of Supreme Court. The other thing they do is they have a standing committee whose job is to read the governing docs and give like their understanding of how the governing docs ought to be read, so that they explain what they think the purpose of the words are supposed to mean, and then that I think could work for us with the thing that at ASU, anytime they change the Constitution, it requires a referendum of the entire student body to vote for it for yes. So the council itself can't actually change the Constitution, so it makes more sense for the council to interpret it in that particular way. Does that make sense? So if we're going to do something like that, we had to radically change the things that we do. Like if we're going to do some sort of Supreme Court, I can't see us just patching it onto what we have as a governing docs. Now that said, I've also gone through our governing docs a little bit more, and our Supreme Court here that the undergraduates use, and I can't really see why we can't use them, except in those particular cases where it says the ED appeal is a final directive, because I imagine they'll just read that and say, okay, the ED said this, so there you are. But there are certain avenues that even as the appeals that don't say that so you could then someone had a problem, they could therefore appeal to the Supreme Court after that if we wanted to do it that way. And that doesn't even really require any sort of formalization in our governing docs because of the way that our Supreme Court is set up to run all of that stuff. Does that make sense? Anyone have any questions about that? I think if we're going to do it, we need to actually change the governing docs, but we don't have to start using them if we want to. Does that make sense?
Okay. Trying to set a meeting with Janice and Rush Johnson, who's the Chief Justice.
Okay.
For the Supreme Court sometime next week. So
Okay.
if you're interested,
Yes.
I'll make sure you're
Awesome.
you.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Cool. Cool, so Daniel, what would it like tonight? Just some feedback
This is
initially?
just an initial thought. Does anyone, I like the idea of having some sort of czar in the room that says, this is how I'm reading this thing. And if the council says, no, you're wrong, then that changes. That's kind of what I do when I'm doing the running of the meeting stuff. If the council says, Daniel, you're reading this wrong, however I run the meeting, then the council can vote and approve a change of some kind. But it would be, the problem I'm seeing is that it wouldn't make sense for like the governing docs committee, whose job is to change the constitution, to also be the ones who say, oh, actually, we want this constitution to mean this other thing, so we're gonna read it as meaning this other thing. So it's just gonna, if we do something like this, it takes mass restructure of our stuff.
So Jim has a comment.
Yeah.
You know, a question and a comment. So the ASUA body that does the interpretation of the governing documents, is that part of their Supreme Court?
No.
So
it
that's,
is-
so that's
it
two
is-
separate things.
Right, it would be like a standing committee the way we have, it's just assembly members. This is also a super complicated thing. They're an assembly rather than a council. Their constitution is for all graduate students, not just for a student council or a department. It's very different.
Go ahead.
A little bit too, yeah, so the right now the HOA, because like the speaker programs, the Supreme Court, they try and stay as much out of the
They
workings
start.
and anything, like even, like we try and push things through, we find a different student that we've been working with them, to run like elections code and things like that through at the law school. Because they want nothing to do with anything, that way if there's an advisory opinion brought to them, or if there is a case through the elections, that they are as informed as possible. So they try and stay much away from any dealings with ASUA and
So I would propose that we have the governing docs committee propose, go through our governing docs, propose some amendments so that we can incorporate using the Supreme Court in appropriate areas, and then present those proposed amendments to the council, general council for a vote.
I also would like, this is all theoretical, because I haven't actually spoken to them, I don't know how it actually works in practice, but I'd like to talk to them about it and see, because the Supreme Court, the graduate Supreme Court might be a volunteer position, which I know that in a budget year, that might be something we want to consider. But essentially what happens is the new president names two members, the assembly president, which would be someone that's like me, but theirs doesn't have a vote on the executive council, puts up two members, and then the fifth one I think is just selected by the council as a whole. And then they just serve for a year. And it might be something, and they don't have any vote in anything except for when they function as the Supreme Court. So that might be something to think about too. So I'll send around the ASU his version of stuff if anyone's interested.
Yeah, that would be good. So my only thoughts are that I think it'd be great to have an independent body, because sometimes we need it. Great if the governing documents committee wants to work on it. And the thing that would be different with ASUA is that some of GPSC's members are law school students, so we have to find some delineation language about that. But other than that, I mean, I think whatever the outcome is, if we actually have an independent body to deal with things, and we're sort of should be dealing with it, I think that's a good thing. So that's my feedback for Dan. Anyone else? Jim, Jasmine and Jim.
I like it. I think it's a good idea. I think it'd be awesome if we had grad student, like, Supreme Court, essentially. Using the same ones as ASUA because they're already grad students. So it's sort of like taking student governance to another level, I guess. But I guess the one thing I'm kind of concerned about is the idea you brought up about having one person decide what the Constitution means.
Sorry, it's not what I meant. But
Yeah, no, I know. But like you mentioned that ASUA does this, like they have a committee, or okay, so
Yeah.
not just one person, even having a committee decide what the Constitution means.
Right.
Just because I feel like if our Constitution is that open to interpretation, we've probably messed it up and should probably reword it to be more clear. I don't think the correct solution is to have someone say, oh, this word probably just means this and we'll just run with it for this year. So I would say let's probably just scrap that whole idea,
Okay.
unfortunately, but I really like the Supreme Court idea.
I like having the committee, because what the committee can do is produce documents and say, here's what we're reading and here's
Okay.
how. And so, because part of our problem is we're all reading the Constitution fresh every year. We have precedent, we have what people remember doing before, but that's never documented anywhere.
Yeah.
And the way in
Okay.
which we change the Constitution makes it hard to figure out what we did 4 years ago and if it worked or not. So, and I don't necessarily want to run to the Supreme Court every time we do
Yeah.
something like that. So, I mean, it could be, what I'd like to see is just some case law, essentially, so we can figure out step.
Could that just be something for the governing docs committee to like keep a running track record of? So every year,
Or,
the
yeah.
next committee gets
Absolutely.
last year's committee's like
Here-
running
here's-
tally of.
here- it could be simply like part of our handoff materials.
Yeah.
Here are the problem we came across, this is how we read the Constitution,
Yeah.
that problem, that kind of thing.
So it wouldn't be the governing docs committee's job to decide this is what it means. The council will still decide what it
Yeah,
means.
I mean, that would
But
be,
then,
that would be, I can see the governing docs committee saying, we read this is what we think is happening, share it with the GC, the
Yeah.
GC's like, yeah, or no,
Yeah.
depending.
and then just keep a record.
Yeah.
Cool, any more feedback for Daniel?
Quick,
Jim, quick?
yeah, one piece of feedback and one question for Chris. So as far as the committee that does the interpretation, that seems to me to just kind of be mirroring what happens in other government organizations in the United States, where there's essentially a superior court that interprets the written laws. So I think that's all that's happening, and then there's the Supreme Court.
I think essentially, yeah, the way it read, it was more like, I don't know, the lawyer, or this lawyer saying, here's what I think, and it's brief, that kind of stuff, but yeah.
So, I mean, all written laws, documents need interpretation. So I think that committee or something performing the function is a good idea. Question for Chris. We're just talking about doing these things as though we can tell these people what to do. Do we have to ask the ASUA Supreme Court if we can use them, or?
Yeah, you know, I think,
Like, how does that
definitely open to it. I had a meeting hopefully next week that he can get more clarification. I think they're definitely open to it, at least trying to get some trial basis to do it. Yeah, I know that, Michael Finnegan, the president, open to it as well. So, yeah.
Cool, thank you, Daniel. Chris, I have you up three times in a row here. I think the next two are similar, so if you want to bleed those together, the stipend approval process and 360 evaluations, then you can do that. So, floor is yours, Chris.
Yeah, 'cause I didn't get it. So as far as, so you got the emails about ED stipends, thank you for everybody for sending, justification, all that, for the ED stipends. We're looking at that, calling myself and Megan, to make determinations. If you aren't getting a full stipend, we will call you and make, so we can talk about it and everything. And go from there. You will have the opportunity still to appeal to the executive board, so that is still the option there. It's just kind of taken off as far as the initial group making that determination, and then coming back to the group again to make that determination again. In the future though, I really feel like, in my mind, there needs to be just a better way of doing evaluations of each other. And, a couple meetings ago I mentioned potentially doing 360 evaluations on each other, to be able to not only provide feedback on work performance, but also allow the ability for that individual to potentially correct behaviors of some sort, and make it an educational type of a thing, and not always be either a yay, you get your stipend, or no, we're going to cut it and be combative on things. So there'd be some sort of actual way for that person to correct behavior potentially, because I think sometimes we say in one-on-one or whatever, but there's nothing written as far as saying these are things that we feel like we need to work on. Especially the next time that stipends come around, these are things that we need to work on. And so, yeah, I sent out a potential 360 performance eval that I've used in the past to some groups. It could be this, it could be something totally different, it could be something to where each individual area has their job responsibilities, and there's a ranking system and so forth, and so that may play a part into how much of a stipend or all or nothing of a stipend goes into it. If there's a scoring rubric of some sort. I don't know. I just want to bring it up because I feel like it could be a better way of determining if the executive board members should get their stipend or not. Just in the past year and a half working with the group, it seems like sometimes it can be contentious conversations as far as going into executive sessions and doing those sort of things. This way it kind of takes away that a little bit, and then also still allows for a much better process of due process when you have to go back to the executive board to justify why you feel like you should get your stipend.
Cool, so thoughts, Jim, Jude, then Daniel.
Yeah, I think the 360 evaluations are great, so people can improve and so forth. But I still think the executive board shouldn't, I still am real uncomfortable with the executive board determining executive board stipend. I mean, somebody else should determine we shouldn't determine our own stipends. It just seems like a conflict of interest and, you know, an invitation for conflict and disagreement. And I'm not aware of any other organization where that kind of thing happens, where a group determines among themselves how much each of them should be paid. So it just makes sense to have some other system in place. And I would propose we come up with something and amend our governing documents accordingly.
We couldn't be a model for the US Congress, right?
Yeah.
But the point well taken. So Jim, Jude, and then Daniel.
So I think first I have a question regarding the EB stipends. I don't know, does that also apply to GAs who were paid over the summer?
Yes.
Okay.
Just to get that.
Okay. And regarding the evaluation, I absolutely think it's a good idea. It's a way to keep track of what we're doing. It's also a way to, I think it's sort of like an incentive for us to actually do our duties as executive board members. And even if that it's not going to be the absolute criteria on which EBs are going to be paid a stipend, I think that would be a good way to have some sort of unbiased opinion of what we are actually doing amongst ourselves. And like you said, I think from your email, it's going to be something that is anonymous, which means that we get to actually talk or speak about what we really think about each of us and not be unnecessarily concerned about what how the other person might think our opinions. So I think it's a great idea and I absolutely support it.
And that's the thing too about it being anonymous. With it being anonymous, you can't file a grievance to get that individual, but if you put it on the 360 evaluation, if it's anonymous, you're filing against everybody because it's a collaborative thing. Yeah. Which is why you go back to the executive board.
Cool. Daniel, you're up next.
Yes. I don't think, I like this idea, but I want to caution, I don't know how many of you get TCEs every year from anonymous students who tell you that you're not doing your job very well. And so what I would like to see, if we're going to do something like this, I would like not a response from each of us, but some sort of self-report that says, these are the things that I did over this time. Sort of like what Chris asked for, because that's like de rigueur for an academic sort of institution anyways, to say, the professor did this, I did these many things. Part of the evaluation of the professor is what the TCEs read. So I say, I did all of this work. You guys say you did good job on these things, bad job on these things. Those two things are what's considered when we talk about stipends, rather than simply what everybody else thinks in the room. Because otherwise it does become this moment of being attacked from all sides, which is never a good feeling. So that's just my addition. If we're going to do one, I would have that self-report as part of the evaluation.
Okay, so Jasmine, and then I'll speak after that.
So I'm just looking at this form, and I know you said we can change it,
Oh,
and I
yeah.
would say we should change it.
Oh yeah, no, it's just
Because I like the idea that they're like, I guess if we all start out with the form at the start of the year, we know exactly how we're going to be evaluated. And so we could just basically put our responsibilities onto this type of form, and then everyone can keep that in mind as they're going through the year. They know exactly what's expected of them. I mean, they already should, but they know like how it's going to be evaluated. We can check in like once in the middle of each semester or something like that, or like end of the summer, like near the end of fall. Like, it seems like this would be a pretty good process. And I also do like Daniel's suggestion of also having the person fill it out for themselves or fill out like a list of things they have accomplished or whatever, because I know that sometimes things will go under the radar, like making something run smoothly and no one else realizes that it was you that was making it run smoothly the whole time can make it so that people sort of judge you a little more harshly because they thought you weren't doing as much. So I think definitely both parts are important, and also if we change this form a bit, I think it would be a good idea. Oh, the last thing though is I do agree that having the EB vote on our own stipends is not great. I think that should probably be the general council voting on the EB stipends, because I would say that for every executive board position, if the general council can't tell that you've been doing your job, you probably have not been doing your job. So I think the general council would probably be in the best position to evaluate whether executive board members have done enough work to deserve their stipends.
Okay, so my only thought, maybe someone knows, Chris, if you've done 360 before, is this a way to do like a weighted like it's part of, your payment and your compensation, maybe the GC is like the other part, and then just trying to like balance. If you think that, I don't know if that's been done before, but it's a suggestion to throw in the hat that comes out in the wash. It's not a good idea. I don't really care. It's just an idea right now. Do you know if that's something that's
Yeah, I think it really, I think it is weighted. I think it really depends on who exactly
What we
is
want.
compiling them and looking at it, making those determinations once the 360 evaluations are compiled. So, yeah.
cool? Jude, you're next.
I think I just wanted to add to what Daniel said. I really agree with that idea. Maybe we could also judge on the basis of our individual responsibilities. I know we have specific duties we're supposed to fulfill when we sign a contract, so we could also have that as sort of criteria which we could judge and see if we're actually doing those.
Cool. So what's next? I mean, Chris sent out something today. Is this something that someone wants to take the lead on, at least as far as creating a Google Doc and sharing with others?
I can probably do that, I guess, as long as
Okay.
people tell me what they want this Google Doc to say.
I mean, I would just start. My own suggestion is start the process, and again, I'll leave it on the agenda for next
So
time.
basically sketch out what I think the process based on this conversation here would look like, and then we can
Yeah, taking the notes from
refine it from there.
I think including go ahead and include the duties that are already assigned to every person on the thing
Okay.
would be the first step. And then like these questions are great. Like I don't have any problem with any of it really, but we can make it more specific as a group.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'll keep this on the agenda for next time. Dan, would you want me to keep the Supreme Court on the agenda for next time as well?
Yes.
Okay,
I will
thanks.
meet with Chris and this guy, the Chief Justice, and we'll report back.
Cool. So let's go to the next item, consent agenda. Chris has to leave, so I want to hurry him up a
Yes,
little bit.
yeah, so, as far as consent agendas go, I think it's something I've been talking to quite a few of you about, how, I feel, that each of the funding areas should be providing consent agendas to the general council. Something we haven't done in the past with every area. I know that with some of the funding areas we have done it, but it would be nice and, alleviate some of those, some of the issues from last year, where, it was like, the general council didn't know some money was being spent here. If consent agendas had been put through, it's pretty much black and white, just to say, here's where the money's going, you guys cool with it, cool, pass. There doesn't have to be a comb through every meeting of saying, this is exactly where everything's going. If those consent agendas are sent out beforehand, like they're supposed to with the minute, or with the agendas, and you can look at it, and then at every general council meeting can just be on the line item on there saying consent agendas for these areas, any discussion, everybody good with it, it's good. So it doesn't have to be heavy discussions for it, unless somebody really does have an issue with it. So for example, sometimes in ASUA, they'll be funding a political group, so it might be questions on, is this bipartisan? Are we in, because we can't fund partisan type stuff, things like that. So the group may have some questions on that. Most of the time it's, looks good, but then it's part of the minutes and we know where the money's going and everybody is black and white on that. And so when I sent out the thing about the GDP, doesn't really matter to me as far as like what was asked or whatever. I'm willing to fund it, but I would like to have a consent agenda on who creates it for the general council for the next meeting to just say, this is it, this is where the money's going, this is getting the money, be good with it, so we can get those contracts out if we need to.
Yeah, I'll put that together. I
Yeah.
got the information.
So yeah, that'd be great. And then so like I said, I'm willing to fund it for next year, but I'd really like it to just be black and white for everybody else.
Okay, so Jim had a comment. Does anyone else? Okay, Jasmine, you're next. Daniel, okay.
I have a question for Chris. With ASUA's consent agenda, how far in advance of the meeting do they publish that?
They did it out.
6
Yeah,
days.
they did it out 40 days. Yeah.
ED guys, do we think that's enough time, for people to look over our hopefully consent agenda that we're gonna start using?
With
We
the
want to
minutes,
avoid
I'm sorry, the agenda's 24 hours in advance, but that's just an agenda. The minutes to be approved is 24 hours. Don't we just generally say that
What?
much?
Oh, no, it's 10 days after the previous meeting for
Yeah, but
minutes.
but if it's within 24 hours of the meeting, we always just kind of say, no one's had time to look at it. that's just. been-
Yeah, and then anything between the 10 days
Yeah,
and.
I think 2 days should be fine. Like,
I would aim for 3,
How-
because
yeah.
that's what research
Okay,
grants
so
tries to go for.
okay, so if you're doing it 3 already, then we can just follow from your thing, that makes sense.
Yeah. Although if it's been 2, I mean, I'm sure we can just give it to the general council to decide yes or no on whether they want to look at it.
Okay, so Jim, what do you think about these suggestions? You okay with them?
Yeah, no, I think
Okay.
3 sounds good.
Okay.
You know, my main concern would be, I don't know, Chris, does GPSC do more transactions than ASUA or fewer?
Depends. You know, I mean, for travel grants, it's definitely going to be a lot. You know, for those sort of things, and there might be a way to do that a little more succinctly, than, you know, having everything listed out. You know, but you know, I think for ASUA, you know, they're normally doing about 12 to 15 on the consent agendas or so. You know, allocations.
Okay, Jasmine's next, but go ahead, Daniel, finish that part.
No, I'm just gonna say, if it just had name, title of thing, score that we gave it, the travel grant thing, score, that should be, I think, sufficient. If anyone has questions about it, then they can
I like that, that's a good idea.
question them.
Well, do you have anything else, Jim? Otherwise,
One other
Jasmine's
thing,
next.
as far as how ASUA does their consent agenda and how we might do it, ASUA's consent agenda seems to me to be extremely brief. You know, there's not really much of a description of what the money is being spent on. We may want to, particularly in light of, you know, things that happened last year, we might want to, you know, require, for some things, like certainly not travel grants or research grants that are self-evident, but maybe have a few sentences that can be put down or something. Just something so that, because what I anticipate is most likely going to happen is, in reality, most reps aren't even going to look at the consent agenda until like right at the meeting, and you know, just something so that people, if there is something controversial or something that somebody might want to raise a flag about, that we really are giving people the opportunity to see that, you know, here, you know, to really understand what they're agreeing to on the consent agenda.
I like that idea personally. Jasmine, you're next.
A couple things. One is that I talked to Charlotte and Janelle about a standardized template for reporting what's been approved by our grant programs. And as soon as I find out who our Club and POD person is, I actually still don't know who that is. But I think we've hired.
Oh, it's Samantha.
Samantha? Okay, I don't know anything about her or what her email address is, so if someone wants to send me that, that'd be cool. But otherwise, once I know how to contact her, I can send her this.
Can you
And
just send me an email to remind me? My computer's broken.
yeah, sure, I'll
Thank you.
ask you. But if everyone wants to see what I've come up with and tell me if it's not good enough, I can certainly send that out. But basically, it's got you start off with the numbers, saying total budget that we started out with, and then budget before this round, requested from this round, approved from this round, remaining if the committee's suggestion is taken. And then it's broken down into proposals that were funded, names, titles, amounts, some combination thereof, partial funding, amount requested versus amount actually given, and then not funded, and then just titles of what was not funded, basically. So that
You're gonna
seems
share that with
to,
everyone?
yeah, I will. So that seems to cover the information that most people would care about, I think. It's what Research Grants has already been doing, so I'm guessing people are going to be okay with it because Research Grants really hasn't gotten complaints about not being transparent enough. And it seems like this could be modified pretty easily for things that aren't already our grant programs. So you basically just do the same thing. It's this is what was bought, this is why, this is amount, and you know this is who it's coming from. The other thing is, Jude just left, so I guess we'll have to wait for him to come back to ask if he's okay with this. But I would prefer if Jude made the consent agenda for GEP, because I know Jim is one of the applicants, and so just to make sure there's not any chance of a conflict of interest coming up, if Jude did it, because I know he was working with Elaine on reviewing those proposals, that might be a bit better.
Okay. Daniel, you're next.
I was just gonna ask, are we really considering doing consent agendas for the non-grant programs? Because I thought the point was these grant programs, because if they're not going through some sort of committee with scoring and so on, then it seems to me something that needs to be discussed like in person with a longer sort of proposal.
I was
So,
thinking like Kevin's stuff or like
Okay.
social stuff.
Yes, okay, so as the consent agenda is meant to just add weight to a professional or like a smaller group of people saying this is what we want to spend the money on. rather than like the Noam Chomsky thing would not make
Right,
sense.
right.
Kind of situation. If that's the difference, then that's fine. I'm happy with that.
Okay. So, Chris, I mean, this has been your suggestion. Does someone want to take a lead on this? And Jasmine, do you want to take a lead on this, Jim?
Sure.
Or does Daniel want to take a lead, or you guys can do it together? I mean, Jasmine took the lead on the past thing.
Jasmine's got part of it done already. So
You have part of it done, so you're gonna share that.
I'm sending it out
So, okay, we'll just
actively.
go with what
if
Jasmine
anyone needs any help, I'll
Okay.
jump in.
Okay, we'll start with what Jasmine shares. So, what I would, without any, if there's no people who speak against this, I'd like to move up our GPSC administrative reports at this point, because we're done with the old business, so we can get some of these folks out. And Chris, you have to leave early tonight, I know,
Yes,
so.
yeah. And special elections wise, heard back from Greg. We're good to go. We can just populate whenever we need to, so we can do a test site type thing. So we can set the dates and we can do make it happen. I do have emails out to a couple people who see if they're still interested in being elections commissioner. One of them is Hannah, who
Yep,
interviewed.
okay.
And so hopefully I'll be able to find some times that they can do it and then try and hit you guys up to see who wants to sit
So
down.
do you want us to select a date and give it to you then?
Yeah, you can
Okay,
look at that,
got it.
probably mid-September, some sort, so, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. So then, the administrative reports, I'll just give them an overview. So we have Wade Wren, Ezra Smith, Stephanie Zawada, and then Jessie Baxter, who's our legislative affairs director. She told me tonight she planned to come. If she couldn't come, it's because she was meeting with 2 elected officials, which is nice that if she's gonna be legislative affairs director, she's doing that when she can't make it tonight. So anyway, I'll just go off from the top. Wade Wren. Hi.
Hi. Real quick, Jasmine, Samantha's contact, I think it's on the website.
Oh, that makes sense. I'll
Okay.
go check there.
Thank you.
So, my goal this year is to sort of lay down or help GPSC lay down some of the foundation in terms of with the repository, providing them the tools moving forward to make sure that there's a system in place that they can refer back, making sure that there's a standardized naming convention. Basically just forcing some standardization onto GPSC because the lack of a system is creating some issues, or we want to prevent issues in the future. The other thing too is I want to make sure that the new website is fully populated with all the information, working with Zach to get the internal and external committees up. The links are up there in the I don't remember which page, but it's the page where it talks about how to be involved, and then right under being a representative, there's the links to the internal and external. So I've done the best I can in terms of designing the layout. So what you see is what I thought was the best. Currently, we don't have a lot of the names of representatives from the GPSC and all these different external campus committees because we don't have anyone yet. So hopefully the general GC board can use that as a resource to figure out what they want to be involved with. And then I can start populating names, and also the same thing goes with the internal committee as well. I think those two are the main things that I'm really pushing for this year. We've been able to. I recently updated the rotating banners. So hopefully, as we progress with the year, that each of you will have different traffic to your respective roles. I think REAP is getting a little bit more traffic, and so is travel grants. We actually just recently found or figured out the issue of what's going on with the REAP web form earlier today. So hopefully Sausage can sort that out. I don't want to go into details, but there was an issue, but hopefully it'll be sorted out. And I guess one thing too I did recently is one of the things that Zach asked me was, hey, do we have any web traffic numbers? I wasn't aware of whether the whole website was tracked, but however, I've asked Sausage to implement this. So right now, there's this tool called Google Analytics. So Google actually tracks the traffic that goes to our website. So hopefully with, was it Samantha who's back?
No,
So-
Ashley.
Ashley, so hopefully Ashley knows how to use this information and try to see, what works. And Google Analytics can also track all the social media websites like Facebook, even though Facebook has their own
Oh, cool.
style, or Twitter or whatever social media accounts we have to sort of further integrate or direct traffic to our website, or whatever the best is. So with her position, hopefully she knows how to use those numbers. I assume you don't have any experience with that.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Any questions for Wei Ren? Thank you, Wei Ren. It sounds like really good stuff. Thanks for all your help. Next person we have is Ezra Smith, the Institute Director. Hi, Ezra.
So my plan for the year is to do 3 to 4 surveys covering a handful of topics that GPSC leadership thinks is important for us to assess. The first few that we have in the pipeline include a survey on professional training. This survey gets at training experiences of graduate students that are both towards academia, as well as training experiences that are for non-academic kind of career positions. Another survey we had talked about is looking at use of the streetcar, so how graduate students use it, if they would use it more, if the hours were changed, what hours would be good for them, where they would take it, etc. So that's another one that we were thinking about. Another survey that we're working on right now is a tuition survey, and that gets at how much graduate students are paying for tuition and how that tuition augments the progress towards their degree. So is it slowing the progress towards their degree? Is it getting in the way? Is it making it hard to find a good place to live? Questions like that. We haven't settled on a 4th survey yet, but it's August, so there's time.
There's time.
Yeah. But yeah, so my plan is to work with the Office of Research and Assessment here at the U to administer those surveys, and then I'll be doing the analysis and dissemination of the results on my end.
Any questions for Ezra? Any thoughts or suggestions? This is also a good place for suggestions. Like, we want to do something else that we think grad students, we want to know about those students, because the basic idea, most people don't know this, but like for Daniel and Jude, the idea behind this is to do data-driven advocacy. So I remember my first year, I would go to the administrators and I'd say, this is what we want this year. It was like, well, is that really what you want, or are you just saying that? And that really bugged me, but I kind of took it to heart and said, okay, we'll actually tell you what the students are telling us they want, and then you have a harder time with that particular sort of dismissive question. So the basic idea is we go to an administrator with data and saying, this is what 600 graduate students said, this is a nice cross-sectional survey with various demographics, ages, genders, the rest of it. Now what are you going to say? And we've been successful in getting a couple things done because of this. So anyway, any suggestions for Ezra? So Jim's hand's up, Jasmine.
So towards the end of last semester, we did a survey on we surveyed grad students about tuition increases. It seems like it would be a good idea to do this every year, right, a few months before tuition setting occurs at the Board of Regents, and maybe get a standardized survey, so we get the same survey every year, and the Board of Regents begins to expect, oh, here's the survey results from GPSC, and this is what they expect to see every year from us. Also, in years past, we've done grad student TNGA workload surveys. Again, it might be a good idea to do that on a regular basis and maybe standardize it based on what we've done in the past. A couple ideas.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. Yeah, you know, that's kind of been something that Zach and I have talked about for a while. You know, there's some issues that, you know, happen, you know, that are kind of interesting every year to assess. And so yeah, tuition's one of them. Workload would be one of them. What are some of the other ones we've talked about? Things like healthcare too, you know, just issues that seem to change, and that it would be important to see kind of how the students are dealing with them.
And I can answer a little bit of this too. Go ahead.
Okay.
I'll let you finish.
Yeah, but yeah, if we could agree on a document, you know, that would be fantastic. If future people use it, that would be even better. But yeah, that's
So before I go to Jasmine and Daniel, so when we started the institute, it's in our strategic plan from 2013. The idea was to do some of the same surveys every year, and we went to the office of, I don't know what they're called at the time, research and
I think it's office. Is it institutional assessment or
Institutional
research and
assessment, I think
assessment
it
or
is.
something like that? Yeah.
And they said, well, actually, you probably don't want to do these every year because the data doesn't like change year to year, but every 3 years for sure, maybe every 2 years. And so what Ezra wants to do, you know, with my input too, is the tuition one, but really is a lot of like the financial survey we did a couple years ago. So we'll be able to see in a 3-year span if there's like any deltas that sort of changed. Workload. The workload survey, we did one 2 years ago with other universities, and the graduate college didn't like our survey. It showed that there was like a more than a standard deviation difference in between reported hours and actual hours worked among the average graduate assistant. They didn't like it because it just sort of pooled so much data, but it kind of upset them enough. Now they're going to do their own workload survey. So in that case, I'm proud of that. So that's to kind of answer a couple of your questions, Jim. So the next person on the queue is Jasmine.
I would be interested in knowing what graduate students want information on that that currently isn't easily available. Currently interesting to me because I bought a house recently and it took me 5 tries to find a bank that would give a mortgage to a graduate student. And it turns out there's just one in town that has no problem with graduate students, and I just didn't know about it. I found out about it yesterday. So stuff like that where I can't be the only grad student on this question. So knowing what grad students don't know and want to know, that way GPSC can do better about filling in those knowledge gaps. Especially because this is the sort of thing, we ask them once, we fill in all those gaps, and we basically don't need to resurvey anymore. I mean, obviously we should anyway every so often, but that should really plug a lot of holes all at once and give us something decent to work on for the rest of the year.
Right. Yeah. So we'll just call them OIA. I think that's the acronym.
Yeah.
That's the official kind of University of Arizona assessment team. They did a very backing up just a bit. Zach and I were actually at the beginning of the summer. We were talking about something along those very lines, a survey of surveys, if you will, kind of, you know, what things are interesting to you, what do you want to know more about, what do you know about GPSC, what do you not know about GPSC, kind of taking the temperature, if you will, of the graduate students in terms of kind of what's going on with them, what's important, what do they want to know more about. So OIA did this survey already. It's really comprehensive. It not only assessed that, it assessed tuition, it assessed a lot of things. For whatever reason, I don't think Lucas ever actually sent the data or the results. He sent the survey, but I don't think we ever. So we might have to follow up with him to get
Campus
those.
climate survey, is that the one?
Yeah.
Can you
campus
follow up
climate.
and?
Yeah, I'll follow
I thought
up
we
with
had
him.
Okay, this isn't the same as the AAU Campus Climate Survey though, right?
It may very well be.
Yeah.
Because that one was really just about sexual assault.
Oh, no, it was,
Okay.
because I looked at the questions and it was
Okay.
very comprehensive. It was quite a long survey. But we haven't gotten the data. So
Okay.
I'll need to follow up with LIA and see if we can get that data, because that would be, could be really helpful.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you, Jasmine. Daniel.
The only thing, I don't know how you guys do workload, like, that's just way vast. So I just want to make sure, are you asking if people are having difficulty finding a GA shift? Because I know there's a bunch of people who are just want a job and can't get it, and a bunch of people who have a job and are overworked. There's got to be some sort of happy medium between where everybody can get labor and and not like,
Yeah, you know, when we did it, because it was a couple of years ago, I don't know if we asked that specific question, although I feel like one of the surveys that we did had to have kind of gotten at that, but maybe not as directly as what you suggest. So that's definitely something to think about. The one that we did was more like, you know, how much are you contracted to work each week? How much do you actually work each week?
I would like to know the percentage of grad students who can't get a job teaching or researching at the university.
So maybe that's something I can ask the grad college to put in their survey,
Yeah.
because that's a really good point. So anyone else for Ezra? If not, you can go on. Anyone to read a little bit early. Sorry, keep your Ezra.
That is okay, thank you.
Or your salmon or whatever you're gonna eat. Yeah.
Snacks here, they're just lying there.
Oh, yeah.
Please, pass those.
Okay. Did you do program tomorrow? Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna take a 90-second break. Yeah.
Do you have any plates or anything anywhere?
There's some in the office if you want to grab those.
I don't know if my key.
Huh? Okay. Well, wait for Daniel to come back. Yes, Stephanie, you can.
There's also ice cream in the office if anyone wants ice cream.
Thanks for doing this, Maria.
Did you find the email?
What?
Did you find the email on the website?
Oh, I didn't check. I guess I could check now. I was gonna check afterwards.
She's definitely, I talked to her the last couple of days, she's definitely like busy with stuff.
Yeah, she's on there.
Thank you,
Oh,
but I
it's just
said,
a
Anytime.
GPSC Club POD at email.
agenda?
Oh.
Yeah, can you email and you remind me?
Yeah.
Okay, Peter, I will do it right now. My computer's
I'll send-
broken.
I'll send it to you.
Okay.
Let me look it up.
It's healthy for you, right?
You're Jim Collins, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and what is your name? I'm sorry.
Zachary Brooks.
Zachary Brooks. Oh, okay.
Have you been to Yo before? Yoga Oasis?
Yes.
I think I've seen you there.
Really? That's
Yeah.
funny. Okay.
Yeah, and if you're wondering, we actually have all these on YouTube. I guess you probably already heard that part.
Yes,
But,
I
like,
just
you
found
can
that out.
actually listen to any meetings, not just the ones you show up to.
Okay. Do you guys happen to know how many people like listen in, like do live?
Over the summer, it was 3 or 4
like the show.
every general council meeting, and it was 1 or 2 during the evening meetings. Now it's 0 because everyone's in town again. But I mean,
Cool.
the record's still there if you want to check it and not have to like get a file in the middle to you or something.
Thank you.
So when Daniel comes back in, we will resume, and Daniel's come back in right on cue. So the next person to speak, next administrator is our development administrator, i.e. raising money, Stephanie Sawada. So Stephanie, the floor is yours.
Okay, so this year I'm working on a combination of fundraising and alumni relations. So starting this coming next week, I'm actually working with the Honors College Alumni Relations Coordinators, first of all, because I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Honors College, but a lot of times even graduate students go to them because of how good they are at helping you get fellowships and national grants. So David Allen, not Tech Launch, David Scott Allen at Honors, and Lisa are the point of contacts there, and I'm going to talk to them about what we could kind of learn from them, or how we could kind of partner with them in some ways to maybe determine what kind of availability there is for them to actually be working with graduate students, like, or providing that information somehow. Just to kind of feel that out. I've worked with them before, was Honors myself, so that'll be interesting. But the next Monday I'm meeting with one of the UA Foundation representatives. I'm meeting with John Dudas, Senior Associate to Dr. Hart. We're going to talk about the UA Foundation is actually really restructured. They are going to be hiring new people. They've got like that new vice president. It's kind of in a flux, but they're re-strategizing how they're going to raise money. Yes. And I'm interested in how that's going to impact graduate students, because of course they want to raise money, but what they're going to raise it for.
What are their priorities?
It can't get worse. It
Right?
can only get better from
I
here.
know, yeah. So I mean, I've been in a couple. I've been with I met with the telephone outreach program. They're already discussing the new initiatives from the UA Foundation that we don't even know about. I don't know what they are, but they already kind of have their directives to take things in another direction. Tomorrow I'm meeting with Zach and Chris to discuss fundraising a campaign for homecoming for graduate students. To actually connect with alumni and see how maybe we could do like crowdfunding out of that. As for kind of utilizing the representatives we have, it would be great for me to actually send like an email to each one of you or to the representatives or in a forum on email to actually get who you might know in your colleges that does the development or is kind of that like scholarship grant point of contact. It's not always the person that even I know or that's on the internet. Sometimes it's somebody that's kind of off in a room and you can't always get a hold of them, but they actually are like the golden portal for getting fellowship or scholarship information. So I'd like to do that, like utilize the brains here. As for alumni relations, what I'd really like to do is, since this is kind of a new initiative here, we want something sustainable. So I'd like to actually begin to build like relationships with people that have gone on from grad school and from not just GPSC but from the U of A. I know Zach, I think you were saying pulling like a database of people and that's been in.
Well, it's mostly GPSC people, but yeah, that's
Okay.
a starting point.
That's a starting point, yeah. So actually building that and forming those connections where we have something sustainable like years from now, there's an actual like alumni database. I mean, even ASUA is excellent at that. And I'm familiar with the way they've done it, but to actually have that coming out of GPSC and then building on those relationships to not always like have people who can donate it first, but perhaps develop like a mentoring network. So say you're a graduate student and you're in social behavioral sciences in one of the fields there, second language acquisition, any of those sciences, soft sciences that you might be interested in, say maybe a more technical type of consulting role. Well, there might be alumni that we have that might be able to connect with you, kind of provide that mentoring, professional development, just interview information that graduate students can't always get, that normally is available through career services more for undergrads. So kind of just working on developing those connections and actually forming a network for GPSC, but also graduate students moving forward.
Jasmine?
So in undergrad, the dorm I was part of wanted to start building relationships with alumni. And so one thing that they did was who was it? The vice presidents, I think, were the ones in charge of like reaching out. Made a newsletter of what had been going on in the past quarter, I think, being like, hey, this is a cool prank our Frosh put on. This is like a cool event that we did. Like these are the results of our elections. Just keeping you all in the loop, and then sent it out. Like really looked really pretty and stuff. And I was wondering if maybe we could try something like that to sort of like keep in contact because. I don't think it would be that much work if you got the information from each of the people who's already sort of compiling this.
Okay.
Like, hey, these are the elections that just happened. Hey, remember JPSC like just turned 25. That's really impressive for a grad student government. Hey, this is how many research grants we gave out last year. This is how many travel grants we gave out last year. Here's like a testimonial from one of the students who like got money from us.
Yeah.
And basically just put that together and then send it out to everyone because that way when we do eventually ask for money, they're like, oh, I've been getting all these awesome feel-good updates. I want to like contribute to this.
I think that to add to that also, that's a great idea, and I think that one of the things I'm going to discuss with Mr. Dudas next week is not like a financial gift on our part, but how maybe bridging either some type of awards, like a recognition, like a GPSC or graduate, former like alumni of the year, like just somebody that's coming at homecoming that is already engaged here or is kind of on the edge of being engaged, has already been talking to either the foundation or people kind of want to bring them in, is that like providing a, hey, this person did this, blah, 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 kind of giving them that feedback in that almost resume line. I just kind of, see where that leads us. Not us giving like financial gifts, but that recognition.
But recognition, yeah. And then another thing was, I can kind of speak to what direction the foundation might hopefully be going in, because foundation met with, the committee of 11 met with a couple of people, and found out what was going on and found out like who to talk to if we weren't happy with it. And so I think several professors might have actually said something to the right people. Basically, I know one thing people are really upset about is that there aren't enough endowed chairs here. And a lot of the gifts coming in are not for endowed chairs, they're for like one-off things where the money's spent and it's gone forever. And so I'm hoping, because I know people were making a big stink about that's going to be one of the directions we're going in, is going for endowed chairs rather than one-off gifts. And then also another thing is that I know we were upset that our foundation does not pursue donors very aggressively.
No.
We basically sit there and wait for people to walk in the door and
Yeah.
say, I wanna give money, which is a terrible strategy. And like, once we sort of like found out about that for sure, like we're like, hey, what are you doing to pursue donors? Oh, we don't really do that.
Yeah.
Okay, that needs to change. And I'm hoping that is another thing they're gonna be changing, because there are rich people, like,
Yeah.
this is where rich people go to retire, come
Yeah,
on.
good point.
So I'm hoping those two
Yeah.
changes are gonna be made.
And my understanding is that they're actually gonna be hiring a bunch of new people over there. I don't know where that's coming from, but that's what I've heard.
Cool. What else do you have? Is that kind of the summary of some
Yeah,
of your
pretty
ideas
much.
and plans?
Yeah.
Cool.
So for the next 2 weeks.
No, beautiful. So Jasmine has some thoughts. Jim, Daniel, do you have anything, or Jude? Okay, so Jim, and I'll share a few things. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Jim.
one quick thought to build on Jasmine's great idea about the newsletter would be, if we could start off with, if we can get somebody, an alumnus to donate some money,
Uh-huh.
maybe we could feature that donation in our first newsletter to sort
Yeah.
of, you know, prime people with, oh, if I make a donation, I'll get in the newsletter
Yeah,
that
somehow we.
everyone will see. And
Yeah.
And I'm actually gonna send you the one that my undergrad
That's great.
dorm made, so you can just sort of
Yeah,
see
especially
for
those
reference.
Yeah, definitely.
my
Cool.
thought being that, you know, because I would think that if one of our former presidents sees, you know, a donation by another former president, he'll go, oh, wow, you know, Joe got written up and he donated $1,000. Well, I can donate $1,000 and maybe we can get a little bit of, you know,
And
competition.
running on that, I think that even things like, so honors is really good where, say, I don't know if we had a keynote speaker at our like graduate orientation. I didn't go, did we? Or how did that work out? No?
No.
Okay, so honors uses like every opportunity to bring somebody in, and a younger alumni, like maybe in their 40s or alumnus, excuse me. And they use that opportunity to bring in new people and keep them coming back to the university. Like at main events, you know, you'll get the like star speaker or the like, you know, big engagement people. But honors makes an attempt to actually start bringing in that there's kind of like that gap between like where you have no money and you graduated, and then like you're starting to potentially become someone who could donate. And honors has really tapped into that. Like all our events, they're like, oh, we brought this person back, and they're like, oh, you get to be a speaker at this. Oh yeah, they do that. So they have a great strategy there, and I'm looking to them right now.
Cool. So a few things. So until people know you, maybe I could send an email on your behalf.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to send you all the things.
Perfect,
So it's a
yeah.
good idea. Alumni, I need to send that with, share what I have with you.
Okay.
Do you happen to know if in the UA Foundation graduates and professional students and undergraduate tag in Razor's Edge, like the database they have? Because I think one of the issues in the past is that they didn't even know who their graduates were because they didn't tag them.
I guess
Okay,
no.
so you
I'll
can,
ask
maybe
John.
you can ask, okay.
Yeah.
What is this database, I'm sorry?
What's that?
What is the database you're talking
The UA Foundation
Oh.
database. Like if they actually have professional graduate undergrads tag.
I think they do, because I
They do?
know last year when Sarah wanted to invite everyone to the gala, she just said, hey, can you just send this to all the grad students who are okay getting communication? And they just did, so.
Okay. Anyway, that's basically what I had. Anything else for Stephanie?
Any ideas or comments?
Super exciting stuff. Thank you, Stephanie. Excellent. So we'll now move on to new business. If Jessie Baxter shows up, then we'll find a way to get her in, and I've texted her. Hopefully she responds. It'd be nice to have her come and introduce herself. Next, the first item in the new business is the schedule for the fall meetings. So my suggestion.
Oh, hold up, Zach.
Yes.
Can we, because I forgot, I had mentioned this when Jude was out of the room, but Jude, would you be okay making the consent agenda for GEP so that it's someone neutral and not someone who got an application in?
I think,
I don't think Jude has the information.
yeah, Jim has all of those information. I
Well,
think
can-
what I would rather recommend is he puts up those information and
Yeah, well, I mean, the consent agenda is going to be the list of everybody and their proposals and,
the amount they're getting paid.
you know, it's
Okay. So you're not gonna be like curating it in any way, it's just gonna actually just be every
I'm just
proposal that
gonna-
came in?
list what people submitted.
Okay.
You know, and I suppose what I should do, I mean, I'll put their, you know, everybody fills out an application form with a description of their project.
Mhm.
Rather than just the title, we can put that in there too.
Probably, yeah.
So,
Okay.
so I'll just cut and
I think
paste, and stick it in, send it out.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. Like Chris mentioned in his email, he wants to have the proposer, the amount of time they spent working on it. And,
Yeah, the amount of money they're asking
yeah,
for,
amount of money
essentially.
they're asking for as well. Yeah. Because I think ultimately the goal is to be transparent with whatever amount of money we have given out to people. So I think that should be part of the information.
Yeah.
Cool. Is that good? Cool.
Yep.
So, the EB schedule, I wish I had my computer in front of me. Basically, the recommendation I had, I don't think it's the best one, is that we would meet on Thursdays. We could maybe half Thursdays, half Wednesdays, so we could also get Marquez in here sometimes. Can you meet Wednesdays?
I can't meet them.
No, sorry. Excuse me. Thursdays or Tuesdays.
He
I
can't
think.
do Tuesdays.
Huh?
Marquez can't do Tuesdays.
That's right.
How about Monday?
So either Thursdays and Mondays, so maybe we can alternate
I
between
think
those.
Mondays are fine, except that we occasionally have GP or
So it's like
GC
what,
meetings,
on
which is fine as long as we just alternate weeks. But who
The only
else?
thing with
Monday's
Mondays,
okay.
I have classes till 6:30.
Yeah,
Until
until
6:30,
6:30.
okay.
That's why Monday
That's
was
fine,
a low
right?
suggestion for me, because we'd have to miss you. And don't you have something on Monday, or is it just Tuesday?
Tuesday, Wednesday.
Okay,
So
like
can
I
we
don't
just
have
start
it in
meeting
front
at 6:30 on Monday? 6:30 to 8:30?
If it's convenient with you guys, I just don't want to make you guys have to stay up too late for.
of me. 6:30 to 8:30, Maria, Daniel.
We'll have to revisit this when Marquez shows up, but
Okay, so let me see if I'll email Marquez about 6:30 to 8:30 on Monday. I just didn't want to start too late, but
Just as
if
long
that's
as we
if that works, it works, huh?
just as long as we keep getting updates about what the meetings are, because
Yeah, no, once I have this, I'll send everyone an invitation for the rest of the semester, so that's not a problem. So, okay, I'll look into that. That was actually easier than trying to disambiguate it over email. Okay, so I'll move on from that. Marquez, he wanted to talk about something, unfortunately can't make it tonight. I think he might be able to come a little bit later.
I
so
think he said he was gonna come after his auditions.
Okay, so once he comes, he can take on this part of the agenda, that's, his name's next to it. Jasmine, you want to talk about EB minutes?
Oh, I wanted to talk about minutes in general, really. But sure. Same deal as we sort of discussed a little bit at general council, but we really just need minutes. And if to get minutes, we need less detailed minutes, that's perfectly fine as long as we actually have minutes. Especially because we have recordings people can listen to if they want the details themselves. And so I really think we just need to decide, like, yeah, let's interpret, because what, was it you who came up with the suggestion, we just interpret the Constitution a little bit, or the bylaws a little bit differently? Detailed can mean you go through and timestamp whenever we switch topics, so that if anyone wants to listen to what was actually said, they have no trouble finding it. And then you have all the decisions, those need to be written out separately. And then that's it, basically. Like, I would be pretty darn happy with that. Like, if I missed a meeting, but I knew exactly what had been discussed and like how to find it, and I knew what had been decided, I would be okay with that. I wouldn't need a transcript. I certainly wouldn't need a half transcript, half like play, like script, like play blow by blow, this person scoffed, stuff like that.
This is
So-
what Robert's rules doesn't say don't.
No, Robert's rule says don't include discussion because then people argue over it,
Yeah.
which is
And so,
totally true.
yeah, because the other thing is, it doesn't matter what the arguments are in those sorts of discussions, in the sense that, like, it's not binding. Like, a person can play devil's advocate in a meeting, that's the point of these sorts of back and forth stuff. And when it's written out like that, and 6 months later, someone comes back and says, oh, but you said this at this meeting, it's just a spiral of anger, because we don't have to, we're not obligated to, like, keep building.
Right. There's definitely that too, where you lose context when you can't hear people's voices. And so suddenly something that was definitely obviously said as a joke, for example, can turn into like a really mean-spirited comment in text. And given that the people reading the minutes aren't gonna have context, including that at all just doesn't seem helpful. But getting these decisions out, I mean, if we did just what I described, just decisions and timestamps, I mean, you could have these in under 2 hours done for sure, no problem. And these could be out in 3 days. Like, I'm not saying that we have to obviously make this change now. We're not gonna change any duties right now. But I'm saying, like, if we found that it was that efficient and fast, we could have decisions out within a few days of the meeting instead of within a few days before the next meeting. And so people can, like, be aware of what we decided much sooner. If anything's being held up on minutes being approved, that could happen a lot faster. Just stuff like that would just be really, really nice to be able to do. And right now we're being held up by minutes being a transcript instead of minutes being minutes.
Okay, so Jim, go ahead.
Yeah, certainly there are many things that happen in our meetings that can be stated very briefly. However, there are certainly things where verbatim transcription is absolutely essential because people come back later and say something different in it. So, you know, I think an appropriate mix is necessary.
That's what the recording's for, though.
Just want to jump in real quick.
Unfortunately, in a practical sense, most people aren't going to go listen to the recording. What they're going to be presented with is a statement about what happened at the meeting. And if that statement is incorrect and another person says, no, this is what happened, you know, there are times when you need to just look at, for controversial matters, or for matters that that clearly might require review, like our GA, our increase of GA salaries. You know, there are times when you actually need to put down exactly what happened because it's important. Exactly what happened is important for some situations.
No.
Cool, so Daniel, do you have a comment?
Yes. The thing that's important in those moments is what we decide to do as a council, not how we got to that position. Those discussions, those back and forths, aren't relevant to the action we're going to take. Because the thing that we're arguing about is you said this and no, you said this and this happened. Is because we're not saying, here's the vote we had, or here's what we decided to table, or whatever, which is what the minutes are supposed to be keeping up with. And so, as long as those direct actions are maintained in the minutes, that becomes less about those arguments shouldn't exist. And we can go back and say, okay, I disagree with what happened, but we can't go back and say, okay, this vote, we voted differently than what is described here.
Okay, wait, so Daniel, Jude, Maria, Jasmine.
Yeah, that's what I'm at now.
Okay, so Daniel's finished. Jude, you're next.
Just a quick addition, if we're talking about people being able to have an idea as to what the content of the discussion was during the meeting, I think that's why we also have the recordings of our meetings. And if someone is so particular about wanting to know what the things that was said in the meeting, they're welcome to go watch out and memo, watch the videos, which is on the Dropbox, I believe. So they have access to this information. It does not necessarily have to be in the meeting, like Jude fought with and Jim, or they had a back and forth arguments. Shouldn't necessarily.
Okay, so Maria, you're next, and then Jasmine.
So I'm glad we're having this discussion, but at some point it just seems there's certain arguments that we already went through, and we talked about the NBGC. I think one of the reps brought it up, and it was, you can't hear everything on the recording, you don't know who's speaking, some of the things are mumbled, and not to mention the fact that sometimes we don't reach a decision, and during the agenda item, you can never know whether the decision will be reached or not. And if you don't have those minutes detailed, the discussion of the in back and forth, as you call it, it's impossible to know what was discussed unless you listen to a whole discussion. And as I said, people can't hear what was discussed. Not to mention if it was a long discussion, people will spend 40 minutes trying to figure it out and listen to the recording, which they have a hard time hearing. Not to mention if the recording isn't updated on their website, which sometimes happens, or if they can't open the recording or whatever. I've had instances where I remember when I wasn't there, I couldn't even open the record. There was one time that I was sent 15 minutes. But besides that, we need that back and forth if we don't reach a decision.
Okay, Jasmine and then Jim.
You've got a point that sometimes people do want to hear verbatim exactly what happened. They want a transcription, but I think that should not be the default because in the vast majority of cases, people don't want the transcription. So I think what should happen instead is the default should be the timestamps. And if people actually want to say, hey, I'm curious what happened between this timestamp and this timestamp, then if enough people care, then it can go back to the secretary and that part only can be transcribed. The things people actually care about can be transcribed. Instead of the default being everything gets transcribed, because let's be honest, how many people do you think actually read those transcriptions?
Well, I did last year.
And I'm sure you were really unhappy about it, having to read through that much stuff. I mean, I read them because I want to make sure I'm not being misquoted, but that's a terrible reason to have to comb through 16 pages of material. Whereas if it's just the contentious stuff that gets transcribed, and contentious being defined as people actually care and want to hear it transcribed, then that's great. Like, we could go with that too. That's a fine compromise. But the current situation of feeling this unnecessary need to transcribe everything and expecting people to be grateful for it, like, it's just counterproductive, and we really need to find something else.
So Jim, then I'll go.
Yeah, I agree with Jasmine that what I suggested it would be a good compromise to simply transcribe the things that, and I think we can leave it up to the secretary who was at the meeting to tell what sorts of things might be appropriate to transcribe today and what things might not. And certainly during the time period when people want to correct, offer corrections to the minutes, like for example, our first summer meeting where we had the law school, the law school guys could email in and say, well, I want verbatim exactly what happened there because we're going to use that at our law school meeting, and that can be added in. The other thing I want to point out is, I think it is, I can't say strongly enough that relying on the recordings is a terrible idea, because it is extremely easy for someone just to graduate and delete all the recordings. We've had several email accounts that had important stuff in it, like our
The stuff was archived.
email account and the GEP email account were deleted. And if we rely so strongly on, we're just going to go back to the recordings, and somebody 3 councils from now, gets say we have a president, 3 years from now gets impeached, and he says, I'm just going to delete all this stuff. He can log in the YouTube account, delete everything, it's all gone, and now we have a bunch of references to recordings that aren't there yet.
We could
Okay,
do
so-
that already, though. If someone wanted to delete all the minutes that we've got, we could just do that. If you're
Okay.
gonna worry about malice, we've got bigger problems.
Okay, so my comment, and then Maria. I like the word compromise, so if we could find some thing that I think there's a lot of good ideas. I actually don't have like super strong opinions, but I think Maria makes really good points. Sometimes you actually need the person in that moment. Sometimes having the recording is a godsend, because I listened to it the other day, yesterday in fact, someone asked me a question, I said, go back. So it's nice. It was hard to hear though. And Jim makes good points because there's documents I created and they're no longer around. So I think there's a lot of good points. So if we can find a compromise between these things, then I'm happiest. Maria, you had your hand up. Do you want to speak, Daniel? So Maria, Daniel.
I was just going to add about the recording. So I think, adding to what Jim said about the deleting of the recordings, I agree with what Zach said, that recordings can, be sometimes very beneficial apart from when you consider them. But the recordings may at some point not fit on our website, from what I understood from Wayland, because they're kind of big. Has something changed since then?
Nothing.
So the recordings at some point may simply not fit on our website, so I don't really know.
Well, if you continue on to have more and more recordings, and you only have so much limited space, so
At some point.
yeah.
So I don't really know. And then,
Do we have so I'll let Daniel go and then I'll speak. Do you want to say anything else, Jasmine? Or
One more
Jim?
time.
Okay, so I'll speak, then Jim. Go ahead, Daniel.
I just want to, the recordings are having all the recordings is a perfect, the state of Arizona considers that to be a legitimate amount of minutes. Like we could, if we were following all the meeting laws exactly, we could just record what we said and that's it, and call it good enough. So while the possibility of 3 years from now all this stuff disappearing exists, that exists in every form of records maintenance. So I don't know, I don't put a lot of stock in that, is essentially my thing. And then the other thing is, Maria, this is your job, and you're the one who gets to decide how this job is done. So you don't really have to wait on we don't have any reason to change anything in the bylaws or the governing docs at all. If you're wanting to do this work, feel free to do so, but I think what we're saying is you don't have to necessarily do all this work that you're doing. And you should, I would encourage you, for your sanity, to reduce the amount of hours you spend on this.
Okay, so
And can
my
I just-
suggestion, me, Jim, and then Jasmine, is to have maybe a plan for saving. Like maybe we can put together a 10-year plan for saving these things. I don't know. I mean, you know, so we at least think through the process a little bit. Jim?
Yeah, Daniel makes a good point, which is also a point Jasmine made, which is that, well, actually, you can delete the recordings, you can delete the minutes. Fortunately, there are, like, the Internet Archive and Google Cache, and, you know, there are copies of our website going back to the very beginning with minutes. You know, but these services that archive websites are not going to archive big video files, but they are and do archive small PDF files. So we actually do have. There is a difference.
I don't see necessarily the value in having a transcript at 6 years old. Like, I see the thing, hey, this is the minutes, these are the discussions and things we decided 6 years ago. But having a transcript of people who've all left the university is, I think, just at a certain point it becomes silly. I think we should discuss and figure out when we start sunsetting these kinds of things. There's no reason for us to keep recordings forever. But I think coming up with a plan like Zach was talking about is what we should do. Find a plan.
And I can say,
Jasmine and Wei Ren.
I'm saving local copies of these videos because I had a scare with YouTube taking forever to agree that I uploaded one of them. So the files are 1 gigabyte each. I think we're going to run out of our space pretty quickly if we actually do this once every week. I don't know, Wei Ren, I actually don't know how much space we have. How many gigabytes do we have?
So right now we're utilizing Dropbox, so that's 1 terabyte. So this is a paid subscription, $100 a year that gets the funds and it's in the budget. So right now we utilize about a little over 20 gigs. So
Okay,
we have
so we'd actually be
about-
okay.
So yeah, I mean, we should be fine, like going off to what Daniel said, like, yeah, we should hang on to these to a certain point. But, you know, I do understand, you know, what Jim is coming from. You know, you want to have as much history as you can, but, you know, maybe we should just hold on to it legally to a certain point. But
So what's that like?
But besides, you know, Google, with Dropbox, you know, if we want to migrate everything to UA Box, then that's a different situation because Box you only get 50 gigabytes
Okay.
for a departmental account,
So we'd have 30 gigabytes free, so that's 1 year of meetings.
possibly even less.
Even,
So,
yeah.
so I'm thinking too, like since you have a YouTube channel and YouTube does not have a maximum amount limit, we could encode all the recordings up into the YouTube account. That would free up our space in Dropbox or Box, however we end up going. So, and, you know, I do understand, you know, Jim's concern that, you know, things can be deleted, but yeah, I mean, you know, maybe just maybe not have someone on ED that have access to it. You know,
Okay.
someone
So-
that's external, someone that who's the staff.
So let's, this is from the EB minutes discussion, which has been great. Let's try to bring this to conclusion and then we can, next steps.
Can I make a comment about
Yes,
this?
right.
So I serve in my HOA board, so you know with the minutes and whatnot. So I mean, couldn't Maria, like, we have an executive section where we yay or nay decisions, and then we open it to the board, or any other people who visit. You know, we don't really have a lot of discussion. I'm sure the GC and ED has a lot of discussion, but couldn't you come up with different topics and make a summary of what the discussion is all about instead of transcribing every single, you know, back and forth conversation? You know, just sort of a summary of like how the conversation went and whether something was tabled or what would the next approach be or what the next step would be.
Okay, so let me go from Maria and then back to Jasmine. This is your thing, but I kind of want to bring this
Yeah.
to a conclusion, and then we can just say what we want to do next, because I think it's a really good conversation. Maria, Jasmine, then we'll finish shortly after that.
So I just wanted to say that these are all very good ideas and I appreciate you trying to make my job either easier or better for the whole general council. But I kind of got used to doing this because of what happened last year. And it's been, I don't know, I've been asked on several occasions to find things, so to speak, in those transcripts that were very helpful, and without that information, it was like minute information, I might not have put it in there because I didn't know ahead of time that it would be important. if I would not have put it in there, there would be no record, and I would not have been able to figure out on which minute in the recording it was, especially if something happened to the recording. If we were, changing websites, something happened, something deleted, someone had access to the website. And a lot of these also suggestions, they seem to maybe be helpful, but it would actually create more work for me. Or either I would feel more responsibility in my job, like trying to figure out what's more important, what's less important. That may be difficult at points. It's manageable, but it may be difficult. Or, for example, like making a summary afterwards, maybe a time stream, or like putting in timestamps. It's additional additional time. So a lot of these things would require even more time as opposed to us, because I'm typing like a detailed transcript during the meeting as opposed to later I would be having to go back, re-listen to the recording, put the timestamps, do a summary. That's even more time as a secretary than I'm spending right now. So that's just it.
Jasmine, and then I have a suggestion to end this real quick.
Okay.
Go ahead, Jasmine.
I did exactly what I'm recommending. It actually did have a brief summary, very brief in the cases where there was almost no conversation, had the decision, and it had the timestamps. It took me 3 hours total. That's because I was doing it completely after the fact and accidentally deleted all my work halfway through. So realistically, it's an hour to do everything I just described. If during the meeting, you're noting, hey, we switched topics at 7:10. And then you go back and say, okay, within this minute, I know the timestamp I need is within this minute somewhere. It really wouldn't be that hard as long as you knew in advance that this is how you wanted to do it. If you really want to keep doing transcripts, all I can say is you've got 10 days, and if you can't do it within 10 days, something needs to change.
So I suggest we keep this on our agenda for next time, to like a conversation. I don't know if someone wants to summarize all the good suggestions. Like in one, have like one paragraph that we could all interact with for the next time, because otherwise,
I'm good.
okay, thanks Daniel. Jim, and then we have to move on to 30 seconds, Jim, please.
Throw this out as an idea. We've given Maria a lot of suggestions about how to do her job. Why don't we give her a little time to kind of digest it all and, maybe not put it on the next agenda, but just give her a little time to sort all this out.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jim. Thanks for coming. Next two items, Daniel, you can kind of run this together if you want. Special elections and elections code.
They are.
The floor is yours.
So now apparently we can do a special election, so we need to do that. I still like the time I suggested the last time, which was the 12th through the 15th of September. We have
Monday through Thursday.
It's Monday through Thursday. We have a GC meeting right in the middle of it, so that we can say, hey, everyone, tell all your constituents to vote in the next 2 days. And that still gives us less than 3 weeks for people to get on the ballot. Now the thing that we're still stuck with the old elections code, because I don't think ethically we could change it right now before a special election. So, but I want to, and we have that list of supposed changes that came out of an election complaint over the summer that we need to discuss and deal with. And then we also need to, this also ties back into the Supreme Court thing, is how do we want to deal with elections code appeals and so on. So, that was a lot, sorry.
That's okay. So I have
first 12th to the 15th is the first thing.
So Zach, Jim, anyone else want to speak about this? So if we do it the 12th to the 15th and we work backwards, when are the packets and those things going to be available? Do we know those times yet?
They're supposed to be due, 5 days beforehand?
Something like that?
Something like that. So that would be, if we said the 5th, that's not a lot of time. Okay. So
packets have to go live the 29th, basically.
yeah. I mean, we could do it. We have them. It's not like it would require much to make them go live, but.
Wait, Ryan, have you just unpublished all the
Yeah,
documents?
I have unpublished. The website doesn't. I can't print the page really nice as a PDF or a screenshot. So what I'll do is I'll just send you guys a screenshot to show you the 2 pages unpublished. So one is basically results and one is sort of just handling all the packets. And then currently right now the election page is just really general in terms of, I don't think there's any attachments if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
So basically just what the electoral process is and all that kind of stuff. So are you, well, I guess the election commissioner, whoever's. We get hired, so hopefully, if not, I can work with you to try to get as much info prepared for this.
I think now that I'm looking at this calendar like this, that week won't work.
You think the week after? Okay, so Jim and then Maria. So Jim wanted to say something, and Maria.
Yeah,
And then Daniel, maybe has a date suggestion then.
yeah, so, Governing Docs has been working on the election code over the summer, and our plan was to have it ready for the next council meeting for approval. Now, so, our old election code is pretty bad, and, it might be worth it to wait an extra week and have a good election code. Just a thought.
Okay, Daniel, respond to that.
The next GC meeting is the 13th. Again, that was in the middle of my initial thought. If we cannot wait. Like we've already said, we've already had people try it. We've already tried to do the whole fill in the gaps. That stuff didn't work. It's not in code anymore. Fine, but we told 2 colleges you can't be at this meeting basically until a special elections happen. And so we need to have that.
Yeah, so that would seem to me we can't make any changes to the election code.
I think,
at this point.
I mean, like, we're within 30 days of the thing that we're wanting to do, so I think it's just unethical to make those changes. Like, we could, I'm not gonna say no, because we haven't solicited any sort of, we haven't asked people to jump in yet. So we could if we did it right now, but we can't do it right now, we have to do it on the 15th, and then, time makes fools of all of us.
Okay, so let's go to Maria. She had her hand up, and then Daniel.
I was just gonna say, just a second. Before I forget, if, it's, last time there were some issues with the governing docs, what was put on the website, the elections code, there was some, just the last election, there was some problems regarding the descriptions of the positions, last spring, the VP positions, and some details regarding how long the write-up should be, and if there should even be a write-up, it was very strange, so if we can make sure that what we have on our website.
Okay, that's the election commissioner. I'll put up whatever I'm given to me, so.
That they're absolutely in accuracy between.
Okay, that's not what I'm
Wait,
talking.
That's not my job.
I know,
put up
I'm
okay,
asking-
wait,
I'm
wait,
not asking
wait,
you to-
Just let Maria finish.
No, I'm not asking.
I think you're asking, you want the website to make sure it reflects the elections code.
I'm not asking you, I'm just telling everyone that
Okay.
needs to happen, and whoever's responsible for doing that, please. do
Probably
it.
governing
Okay,
docs.
wait. Just let Maria finish. Daniel, you're next.
I mean, I don't know when everything will be.
Yeah,
Okay.
so last year, I put up whatever was asked of me, and I ran it by the election commissioner. So, whatever she thought it looked like was fine, so, it is what it is, so, so whoever's hired for that, I'll work in a similar process to, get that squared away, whatever format you guys want.
Okay, so Daniel, you're
I
next.
think what we just need to do is make sure, we're gonna follow the elections code as written. The one that's on the website is from March, it's the latest one. What we have to do is make sure that every document that is other than the elections code just matches what's on the elections code. So that means saying the way in, here are the changes we have to make to the website, because these are wrong.
So,
Which is our job, not his job.
Yeah.
so Daniel, do you have a suggestion for the date? If you said it's 12th to the 15th, doesn't
The
work?
19th to the 22nd would be the next week. It's the 19th to the 22nd, yes.
Okay.
It's still Monday through Thursday, it's between 2 meetings,
So then the packets would be September,
I think the packets need to go out on the 29th, the packets need to be due on the 12th.
Wait, live on the 29th.
Or you do it on the 12th.
okay.
That's a week before the election starts, that's plenty time. I think it's probably a little bit later than that according to the code. I don't have it like right in front of me.
So so Jude, go ahead.
With the dates, is this something we can do over the weekend? Because I'm thinking some grad students might be very busy during the weekend. You know what I think about?
I know we have 4 full days, which is required, but I
Friday
think we
to
can do it.
Monday, and just even.
I don't see any reason why we could do it that way if we wanted to.
I mean, basically just Chris needs to give the okay on the dates because
Yeah,
he's
he's-
officially the one who sets it right now.
But we're sort of giving him a recommendation. So Daniel's recommendation was the 12th through the 15th, now we're saying the 19th to the 22nd.
We could do it over the weekend. I don't see any problem with that.
So what are we now saying?
We're not sure yet what the
Still
recommendation
checking.
is.
So we've got another option on the table is to go over the weekend. Our weekend, we haven't picked one.
So I'm guessing in that case, it would be the 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, that weekend probably?
That would work.
Any thoughts about the weekend, Marquez? Do you have any thoughts about the weekend versus during the week?
Me personally, I probably would prefer Monday through Thursday, just because it's during the already here on campus, it might be a little bit more forward to get the work through. But on the weekends, they might be able to have a lot more prepared for what they need. So, but I'm more for Monday through Thursday.
Okay. So Jasmine and Daniel.
We're supposed to have in-person voting available.
Yes, so
Might
we
be a
shouldn't do
problem.
the weekend.
So we
Also,
could
also,
this weekend.
Okay.
previously there have been issues with voting,
Yeah.
that some IT guy had to fix,
Yeah.
and it's not Wayron's job, it's someone else's.
Oh, yeah, no.
Because you don't run the elections.
No.
So that should actually probably happen during the week, so this person actually is in the office and we
Okay,
can
so it
call
sounds
them.
like we're coming back to a consensus, the 19th to 22nd.
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Did
think
you have something?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Where, before you leave, I was wondering, are you still taking pictures today?
Oh, shoot, I completely forgot. Let me go get the camera.
Do you need my ID card?
Was that?
ID card?
No. Do we have a camera? in the
Yeah,
office?
we have a camera.
Okay, sure.
I'm taking a photo today.
If you don't know where it is, then you can come back.
Is there any extra, are there any extra
Never mind.
t-shirts?
Go get a different
We
camera.
don't have to take photos.
Yeah, no, it's cool.
You're cool.
No, it's all good. No, it's fine. I don't mind bringing my striped little socks, my tights. So it is all good.
Well, we can also do tomorrow, right?
We can also.
You know, we can also do
No,
tomorrow.
we can
Tomorrow?
do it
Oh,
tomorrow.
wait,
lunch,
no,
yeah.
Marquez, you can't come tomorrow, right?
Uh,
That's
Okay.
right. So
No, we can do it. We can do it today.
Today.
It'll have
Okay.
some flair with the picture.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or if you want to get GPSC t-shirts, you can.
Yeah,
get
that's
one.
cool.
Okay.
Alright.
Joy does
Yeah,
like this all the
colors.
time.
So let's stay on the new business.
Thank you. Yeah.
Alright, Marquez, you're next. We skipped you. General
You want
council
to skip what
meeting
again?
interactions, I called
No, you
it.
shouldn't because
Yeah.
we'll take
Just a second, let's
that's all
wait
this
for
is.
these guys to finish. Just
Yeah.
wait, this is Marquez's thing, so.
This was more just kind of my observations on how GC meetings are going and what we can do to try to not have what's happening between us filter down into the GC representatives, which I was seeing a little bit more of that. The last meeting, which I don't think will be of any good use, but just some suggestions that I'm thinking is I noticed that we're all sitting separated during the general council meetings, and I think we can at least show a better sense of unity if at least all of us were in some sort of row, so that everybody knows that this is the executive board, so that we have that standing there. That's an idea for that. I don't know if it's reasonable to ask for a specified amount of time for some of the things that we talk about, because a lot of times it can go 20, 30, 40 minutes and so forth. But if we can, with everything that's in the meeting, everybody can see it, this is gonna be 5 minutes, that's gonna be 7, we might need a little bit more here, we can spend that for 10. And I think, yeah, another suggestion with that. But I think, to go along with that, I think some of the discussions that we have with the GC, if we come up with some things that we at least can agree on and propose those, and then get the GC's opinions on that and see if something else arises, or if a lot of them are kind of on board with one of the three, then maybe we can make a better decision on what might be best based on what their suggestions are from what we come up with first, rather than having an open discussion that can kind of go all over the place with it. Yes, those were just some of my suggestions with that. But I think a big thing is if we can be better able, if we have different arguments or discussions and things that we're not necessarily on board with, maybe rather than shouting them out or calling people out or something like that, then maybe we can write those down and talk to that person individually after, just so that it doesn't become a shouting fest and other people won't want to chime in into the discussions, or just really bringing the morale down. Yeah, because I have some people that would like to come to GC meetings, but I'm specifically telling them not to, because I don't want them to come here and see any part of of the negative that we are displaying, but if we're trying to make it a positive experience, then it definitely needs to start with us with that.
Okay, so Jude,
Just some suggestions with that.
sorry, did I interrupt you?
Yeah.
Okay, so
No,
Jude
you're
had his
good.
hand up. Anyone else? Daniel, Jim? Okay. So Jude, you're first.
I'm glad you actually talked about this, and I want to really commend Daniel, who I'd say did a very good job at the last meeting, trying to, enforce some level of order. One thing I wanted to point out to every one of us in this room, I think I was guilty of it a little bit at the last meeting. I don't want to point fingers on anybody specifically, but it's something most of us do. There's this habit of we interrupting people when they talk. If you have something to say, I understand, I wouldn't always agree to what everybody has to say, especially if you're trying to twist my word or you're trying to say what is not accurate. I'm going to disagree with it. But I don't think it's always very professional when, you have to interrupt the person midway through the conversation to say, oh, that's not true, or that's not kind of, and just not allow the person go through their presentation or their point or whatever they're trying to say. I think what might be a little bit more professional is allow them go through their point. You might jot down your point, like as they talk, if you pick up counterpoints, you might write it down. And when they're done with their conversation, you bring up your point and you discuss it. Advocacy doesn't mean we have to agree on everything, but it shouldn't become a war zone. That was a statement people who actually came from outside in the first meeting had for us. It was like a war zone because we kept on interrupting ourselves and fighting like verbally with each other, and it's not very good. So that's just what I like to
Cool. Thanks to Daniel and then Jim.
I can just automatically start adding time to those things. I can just do that as part of my job. And then just say, we're gonna spend 10 minutes on this, and then if it goes, we just have to, if we want to extend, we just have to motion to extend stuff. I think having an hour on the budget talk made it work really well, so I think that's a good idea, and I'm gonna start doing that.
Cool. Thank you, Daniel. Jim?
Yeah, I was gonna say, we actually have done that in the past, and it worked well to have proposed time limits.
Did I do that too? I
Pardon?
think I did that. I think I also did
Yeah,
that.
I think, yeah. When Maria was a cemetery, we did that. And, when people, I would say to extend that, when people propose to Daniel an agenda item, why don't you propose a time
Okay.
length as well? And that way, I think that'll help Daniel to say, oh, hey, we're getting filled up now, and I don't know what you do if more agenda items come in when you've got 2 hours worth, but at least we can deal with it before the meeting and maybe rearrange and shorten and whatever.
Cool. So this is your item, so go ahead, Marquez.
Well, I just wanted to end on a positive. I think a really good thing that happened from that meeting, though, when we were able to put all that aside, especially trying to decide and really work on what things could be broken down, I think that was our best moment. When we're able to really focus on what our goals and things are for the people that we serve, that's when we are at our best, and that was an awesome moment. And so I really appreciate how each and every one of you, I'm getting to know a little bit more of what you guys do on the outside, just all the hard work that you do, and just how much care that you guys put into it. And we really need to continue that and keep pushing that in our meetings to make it a little bit more productive. And then other people will want to put forth even more effort and participate more and help us with some of the events and things that we do have. So when we are at that moment, we are definitely unstoppable with that, I feel. So
Cool. Thank you. Did
Yeah.
you want to say something, Maria?
I just wanted to add, I think I mentioned it before, people, it wasn't, people didn't support the idea. And I'm not saying you should do it, I'm just saying, when I did it, there was also, if we're running into a point where there's not enough time, we could do that one time. We could do the timer. but if people-
Extension thing.
We could, yeah.
The 1 minute timer on how
I
long you
used
can
to
talk
do the
for.
timer online
Yes.
where you press it, I don't know,
Oh, yeah.
where you press it and it starts beeping loudly and everyone's, and people if you're able to project it, people can actually see how much time they have left. But if you guys don't wanna do it, I'm not saying you should do it, I'm just saying that's.
Yeah, and along those lines, what I would do is just on my cell phone, I would just have a little stopwatch going, and when it hit a minute, I'd be like, okay. Depending on if it was actually a contentious.
Yes, I was looking at, ASU actually has built into the Constitution that everything's 3 minutes. You have 3 minutes to talk about a thing before that's how long you can hold the floor in one of those meetings, which is interesting and extreme. And I don't necessarily want to start doing sort of, hey, shutdown moments, but I do want to start. I have to figure out how to move the conversation.
Okay, so
along
this is
better.
yours. Do you wanna say anything else? I'm gonna make sure this is your item to
Um,
lead.
No, I guess the last thing is if just when it does it, you sense it when it just starts to kind of get out of hand, like how we can form a way of stopping that combo so that everybody just kind of stops and pulls without you having to yell and scream. I don't know if there's a particular way or motion that we have to go about that, or
I
if
mean,
you
you
just
can
say,
call the question, or you can move to end discussion. Either
Okay.
of these is okay.
right,
But you have to get called on to call the
Yeah.
question or move to end discussion.
yeah, okay.
Okay, anything else?
No, that's it.
Thank you so much. So,
That kind of comment?
you got 15 seconds.
That's fine.
Okay.
I just wanted to thank Marquez for his comment about when that budget discussion, when everybody was participating. That was actually the entire point of doing the budget the way it was done. And Zach and I spent a lot of time figuring out how to make that happen. The idea is to get everybody involved in making the decisions on the budget, rather than what has happened for time immemorial, where the GC just says, here's the budget, put it up for 5 minutes, everyone approves it, and then off we go. So it's,
One more thing?
no, I just,
That's it? Okay. Cool, thank you. Good, so next item, I think we'll have to skip over the executive board reports tonight. We can go on to summer stipends, it looks like. So Jasmine, this is your item, and if we want to stick to an hour, we have about 10 minutes, but we might have to go a few extra minutes tonight. So
Yeah, the
Jasmine.
question is, are we gonna start talking about this now, or are we gonna go through like reports and stuff instead?
Well, I suggested we skip over reports tonight, so we
Yeah.
could
Okay,
save
so
ourselves
just,
some
so
time.
just do summer stipends.
Summer stipends.
Objections? Okay, then let me